Welcome back to another slightly unhinged episode of Spilling the Chilli Sauce, where I share with you my inside scoop on what it's like running a business in 2026. I'm Stephanie Ward and I'm the founder of the Spicy Brain Collective, Spicy Brain Energy and Stephanie Ward & Co. And in this episode, I'm going to talk to you about my goals versus my actual numbers because we love data over here. I'm going to talk to you about what I did this week to talk to my audience and what worked. I'm going to talk about how we're supporting our community and what this will do to grow our audience in return. I'm going to share with you a wobble I had this week and how that worked out for me. And I am going to give you the secret scoop around my breakup, including how I raised £65,000 in 13 weeks. It's actually more than that, but we'll come to it. So let's go first to the numbers. So just a reminder, every week I set myself some goals around what I want to do numerically for my business. I want to bring in 13 new members to my community. I want to bring in 4 new members to my productivity hub. And I want to bring in around 80 mailing list subscribers. I'm also looking to grow my social media audience, and I don't have specific metrics for that weekly, but I do have a total number by the end of March 2027. So how did we do? In terms of the community, I brought in 10 new members and 3 churned. They weren't unexpected churns. They were people who weren't engaged. There was one who'd been there for a while who actually wasn't really aligned with what we do, so that wasn't a big deal for me. In terms of the Productivity Hub, we got no more this week. And I'll be honest, I didn't push it either. The mailing list, we actually got 4 completely random leads from sharing on Instagram stories. I'll come back to that in a moment. And across social media followers, we got an additional 88 across our 5 main profiles. So what was I talking about this week? On emails, we were promoting our workshop at TubeFest, which is going to be in April. And so there were emails went out every day about TubeFest, what we were doing and what people would get from that. We also did an email on Friday about the Productivity Hub, which is A/B split tested. So there's a version that goes to people who are members. There is a version that goes to people who aren't members. I also did a random one on April Fool's Day, which was just telling a story and telling everyone to take some downtime. What I told was quite a personal story. So for those who don't know, I lost a friend on April Fool's Day in 2010. Michael was killed in the military. And this was the first year that I didn't remember straight away. It's really strange for me because when I wake up on April Fool's Day, he's usually one of the first things I think about because he would have absolutely loved that he died on April Fool's Day, to be clear. He would have thought that was the absolute exit from this world. And every year since then, for the last 16 years, I have been sad on April Fool's Day. And I was still sad on April Fool's Day this year, but it was really interesting to me to process out the fact that actually, this is the first year that I haven't remembered immediately. And I think that's a sign that, there is some healing of some grief there. So I just told that story to my audience in an email and a social post. And it was for no reason other than to just say, take some time because you never know how long you've got. And that actually got a lot of really good engagement, really positive engagement, because I think people don't value their downtime enough. I know that I'm definitely one of those people. So it was really nice to get some lovely responses, and I got some beautiful emails back from actually people feeling the same. So that was really heartwarming in a way. So in terms of content online, I posted on my work profiles about TubeFest and piece to camera things that we made with Elizabeth Carley-Leonard from Vibes and Visibility. And they are about appealing to people with neurodivergent conditions and showing them that we're a safe space. In terms of my personal brand, the content I put out was a lot around the podcast. There was also some storytelling content as well. And my personal Facebook, I just used as a stream of consciousness. Anything that I was thinking of, anything I wanted to say in the moment, I just did that. And it's really interesting because my personal Facebook profile was actually the one that grew the most this week. So make of that what you will. People might like my stream of consciousness. I have no idea. I also do get quite a lot from my Instagram stories. But midweek, I looked at the numbers for the community and I saw I wasn't quite halfway. So I thought, what can I do to really bring some things in? And I talked about all of the different ways that people can work with me in terms of, my free ebook, listening to my podcast, downloading my free webinar, like replay, getting into my community. I posted across my Instagram stories just with the free stuff first, just put the free stuff out to see, will I get a hit? And I got 2 new community members and 4 mailing list subscribers against the 2 opt-ins. So bearing in mind that this was the bare minimum effort, what this tells us is that when we talk about what we do, people will take it. If people don't know what you do, they can't engage with it. And I will die on that hill. My WhatsApp community is also doing really well at the minute. So for the Spicy Brain Collective, we brought in a WhatsApp community to encourage people to converse backwards and forwards better. Because as much as Heartbeat is working for a lot of things, it doesn't encourage the day-to-day chatter. So we're finding that people are having really good collaboration conversations in there, generally just sharing memes, chatterboxing, there's a pet thread. Everyone seems really happy. So as much as I kind of got about halfway on my numbers, what I've learned this week is I need to just keep talking about the things. And I knew this already. I just don't do it as much as I should. Something that we're encouraging in our community at the moment is mutual audience leverage. And what I mean by that is we all have different audiences. I'll have the audience I speak to just as much as you'll have the audience you speak to. And what's really cool is that we can all help each other. So my community are a wonderful bunch of people who have wonderful things to share. And I came up with the idea of what if they all came into the community and shared a session. I'll promote it for them. I'll share it on my socials so people who are in the community get it, but also people publicly can see it as well. And all I ask in return is that they are sharing theirs as well. So I ran a training session about this. There was around 30 people came live. And we discussed how they could use their sessions to generate leads, what kind of lead magnets they should use, and how we would support them to generate leads from that. What we're doing to help them in return is giving them some swipe copy and some graphics to share on their own social media and in their emails so that they can bring people to us as well. Why am I doing this? The simple reason is we all win when we all win, as our lovely friend Danny Wallace says. And I know that my community are really good at holding each other and supporting each other. I'm just asking for some reciprocity. So my hope is that by doing this, it'll generate leads for my community. It will generate leads for my clients. It will bring people onto my mailing list. It's all helping to grow my numbers, but it's helping other people as well. And that never feels bad to me. This week, I had a bit of a wobble. I'm going to be honest. I started my week with 21 items on the to-do list and I finished it with 28 and I had crossed off 16 big ones. It all felt really heavy and honestly, I just felt really lonely. I think when we are hustling, and when we are working towards something big, it's really easy to feel lonely. Yeah, there was a moment on Thursday where I went to the dark place for a little while. And massive shout out to Tristan Griffiths, who just saw that and we hopped on a body double and we got some things done. And it made me feel great, you know? Some of my friends are really great at holding that space, Washington being another one. Washington's one of those friends who sets the standards really high because I called him this week to tell him I'd got us tickets for primary school assembly bangers. I am so excited for that. And he answered the phone straight away. He was so excited about it. The level of love and enthusiasm he shows me as my friend is going to set the standards really bloody high for anyone wanting to come into my life, because if a friend can give me that much love, like, it's going to take a lot for me to accept anything less than that. But my key takeaways from having a wobble of this is that you need to keep talking about what's going on. You need to keep sharing it, because if people don't know what you're experiencing, they can't help you. And the thing is that you might not feel comfortable that people want to help you. But if you don't lean in, you're going to make yourself lonely. And people do care. That's basically all I've got to say there. People care. People want to love on you. And I think as a community leader who leads with radicalized people with love, it would be really weird if my people didn't reciprocate that. And I'm just so grateful every day for the people that I bring into my world. So thank you to Washington and Tristan and to everybody else who's held space for me recently, because I've had a really tough time of things. And I'm going to tell you now about the big story. So as many people know, my ex and I parted ways in August. This isn't a secret. I realised the other day that my neighbours didn't know. I was like, oopsie, yeah, so he's moving out. That's a thing. But we've lived together since then in the same house. I'm very privileged that we have a house that is big enough that we can both move around it without tripping over each other. It's not been without its challenges. You know, it was very uncomfortable in the beginning, but we've settled into a nice rhythm in terms of both being there for my son. It's been hard, but we've worked it out. In January, I was really starting to feel the pressure. I knew he wanted to go, and I knew I needed to start thinking about this. And before he even brought up the conversation, I had been like, right, Eleanor, we need to sit down and we need to make a plan. Eleanor, for those who don't know, is my PA, and she is the hand at my back when I need it. She is absolutely an incredible human, and I would be lost without her, literally, because she also helps me plan travel because I have no sense of direction. So we sat down and I was looking at what does my situation look like in terms of money, because that's what it all boils down to at the end of the day, you know? And the mortgage on this house is on a really low fixed rate until June 2027. So it's on a 1.95% fixed rate. At the minute, the lowest you can get is 3.5%. And that is not great, really. It's not. If I was to lose my fixed rate, my mortgage would go up by about 300 to 400 a month. And that was without me taking on any extra borrowing to buy out his share of the equity. because there is equity in the property. I sat and rinsed the numbers around a number of times. I got really dark while I was doing this because the last thing I wanted to do was sell the house. But I also knew that if I do this work, I wouldn't be able to come up with a plan. The path of least resistance was simply raise enough to cover his half of the equity. And I also needed to cover off the credit cards because I had about £20,000 on credit cards. I also needed to find about 10 grand to cover the taxes and VAT on all of this. So you're looking at 50 grand, 20 to him, 20 to the cards, 10 to the taxes. And I also had a few setbacks in January, and we had a few clients who were on access to work grants that dropped off unexpectedly. And we had someone who had honestly very predictable income, but they had difficult times fall upon them as well. And so we had a few clients drop from nowhere. And it was looking like, honestly, if I didn't pull my finger out of my ass, redundancy territory. And what I need you to know about me and my team is that I love my team. I love my girls and Tom. My girls and Tom. Tom is an honorary girl on Mondays and Fridays. He does have 3 sisters. I am one of them. But I love them. And it's really important to me that I can offer them stability. The last thing I want to do is put someone out of work. So I had 13 weeks to find an extra £65,000. That was 50 to deal with my personal situation and 15 to cover the losses that we've hit in January. And that felt like a mammoth task. Like when you break that down, that's like 13 weeks, 65 grand. That's like an extra 5 grand a week. I was like, okay, what can I do to do this? And I'm going to tell you the process that I followed to bring in this extra revenue. I'm also going to tell you that I actually overshot because I'm an overachiever. And this is how it went down. So in January, I was not using my mailing list properly. I wasn't putting people on it who should have been. There was lots and lots of things. So I first pulled out all of my client contacts and put them into my MailerLite account. Obviously, I'm not using MailerLite now, and I'll share why shortly. But I plugged all of my contacts in there and I sent out marketing emails every single day, pushing various things from my own product suite and from different things that I was affiliating for. So I affiliated for Lisa Johnson's One to Many Elite, and I affiliated for Lindsay McGlone's My Instagram is Dead. And I also had my own product suites, which I inevitably added to. So I decided to launch the Productivity Hub, and I was giving people the chance to buy virtual assistant blocks of time up front because we were putting our prices up. And if that wasn't a lie, we were genuinely putting prices up because our profit margins were getting pinched by the economy. Love that for us. So the mailing list, first of all, made me an additional £6,038. That was 8 blocks of virtual assistant hours. That was £100 a month recurring revenue from the Productivity Hub plus 287 upfront. And that was 2,091 in affiliate sales. I also brought in 2 new coaching clients. So these were people that I already knew who wanted to work with me, who'd applied for access to work and were awaiting funding. So when they got their funding awarded, they came to work with us. I also brought in 4 projects, which totaled 14,500. So this was 1 from my mailing list. There was 1 from an event in January that I attended. So when I was at Audacious Live, we locked in about £32,500 of leads. We converted 30,000 of them. One of these obviously was from that. I had 1 that was a friend who'd been in my space for a while, who just wanted to take the plunge. And she was like, look, I've got this chunk of money. Can I give it to you? Absolutely, babe. Give me it. Many thanks, kind regards. And there was 1 who was someone I'd spoken to online, but when I met them at the big festoon, it changed the way that they felt about my company and they just leapt in. So in total, from everything I've told you so far, that was £24,000. We love that. I also brought in retainers worth 27 hours a week, which is about £1,200 a week, which is about 62,400 in total. So overall, I brought in £86,000 in new business in 13 weeks. Now, I will say that we're still waiting for some of that money to land. Some of it is from government grants, which take a little while. Some of it is from retainers that will pay over the course of the year. We've also still got £30,000 of leads in the pipeline. So what's special about these? What is it that makes me different? The simple answer is not very much. I repeatedly said over and over, I offer this, you can buy it, this is why you should. This is what I offer, this is how much it is, and this is why you should buy it. Over and over and over. And people did buy. I had a lot of personal conversations. So at Audacious Live, I was sat having conversations for most of the day. I was sat on the couch. People would come to me or they'd come to my team and we'd just switch out and just have these conversations all day about what we do, how we help, what we do, how we help. But these were followed up consistently and without pressure. And I think that's really important to highlight is that I never went back and saying, hey, do you still want to work with us? It was like, hey, how's your day going? It was lovely talking to you the other day. Really important to me, even if I am having these conversations for a purpose, that it doesn't sound like it. It was having a system for tracking these interactions. So we built a leads and contacts database in ClickUp, which we're still using, and which is actually available as a white labeled product in the Productivity Hub, because I knew that I needed someone to help me on the days I was struggling to be consistent. So when I was waking up and like, no, thank you, it meant that Eleanor had something to log into and see where I was up to so she could reply to emails on my behalf and things like that. But it was actual conversations and calls, getting people booked into a call and having that personal, without expectation conversation rather than just DMs backward and forward. DMs are great to get it started, but when you are an actual human being, you need to have actual human being conversations. So as it stands, as of right now, I've got 34,000 of that money that I needed for my personal thing in the bank. So I need to have 40 grand in this account by the end of April to be able to do what needs to be done for me to take on my mortgage. So I have got 3 weeks to get an extra 6,000 and it's already on the way. It's in invoices. It's going to land soon. So I'm really, really, really excited that this is going to allow me to move forward. I think what's really important to highlight here is that it was never about the money. The money is a passport to something else. My why in my business has always been my little boy. Jack is an absolute icon of a human. For anyone who hasn't met him, if you are going to Business Mastery Live on the 13th and 14th of April, you will meet Jack. And I think a lot of people don't actually realise that I have a high needs special needs child. He doesn't present as high needs, but he's my kind of autistic. So he's outwardly seems very capable, but he really struggles with some of the basic, like connecting the dots in daily life. So it needs a lot of prompting and reminders. There was a time when we thought Jack might never leave home. And that was a really scary concept for me as a parent. I didn't think that that was something I'd ever have to deal with or come to terms with. So to know that we have our home locked in, even if that was still true, it would mean that Jack had somewhere to live. The reality is Jack probably will live independently because he's very capable. Once we've done those bits to bridge those gaps, I feel that we will really be able to take him, he will have an independent life. But it's still really important for me to build this life that means that he has got the continuity and stability. And money is the passport to that, inevitably. So I'm really proud of how much I've done in those 13 weeks. What I do need to share is that it was hard. It has taken me to dark places. It has taken me close to the edge and back again. Accomplishing this, I feel untouchable. I feel so powerful because how come I was nobody 5 years ago, and now I can do what needs to be done to generate significant sums of money very quickly. A lot of that is testament to how much hard work I've done over the years, but some of it was just my attitude, in that I can say now what it was is I refused for the solution or the outcome to be anything other than success. Failure was not an option here. My son needed me to do what needed to be done. And I did it. And part of the reason I'm sharing all of my takeaways in these podcasts right now is that I want everyone else to be able to do the same thing. And the reality is, everything I'm talking about right now, all of it was just experiments. It's daily, weekly experiments. So for the week ahead, what I'm planning is more of the same, essentially. I'm going to be writing my emails today, which are going to be taking people to my community, to collaborations. We've got our first collaboration session this week. My social media content is going to be very much the same sort of thing as well. It seems to be working, so I'm not going to change up too much. All I want from this week is to continue the trajectory, consistent growth across the weeks. I'm confident that if I continue to just make a little bit more progress week on week, that we will hit our goals. So that's me. Thank you very much for joining me for another episode of Spilling the Chilli Sauce, and I look forward to seeing you next week, where I share even more of my slightly feral insights. Catch you again. Thank you for joining me.